Just like the Black Saturday bushfires nearly 3 years ago, a report on the Victorian floods in January describes a confused ad hoc response from our emergency services. In a moment, we'll speak to Water Minister Peter Walsh, but first, Cheryl Hall gauged the reaction from some communities still in recovery.
Victoria has had two major disasters in 2 years, both described as unprecedented. The well-used term for extreme events, one in 100 years, did little to describe January's floods or the fires of February 2009. Former Police Commissioner Neil Comrie's report has found that, like the Black Saturday bushfires 2 years earlier, the state's emergency management system could not cope during the floods. He described it as a siloed, uncoordinated structure that invariably breaks down in the face of a large-scale or protracted emergency. That's no surprise to the people caught in the floodwaters.
We did run into some problems because we wasn't sure which agency was going to do what or what help might come forward and how we go about it. So we just need to have the ground rules set out a little bit.
140 towns were flooded, including about 4,000 homes around the state. Farmland was inundated, and in some areas, like Benjaroop, it took authorities months to drain away the water.
We saw early on, after our experience at Quambatook, we had to take control of the communications. To leave it where it was utter disaster.
We're certainly concerned that if a major disaster of that size struck tomorrow, we would still have some limitations.
One advantage the floods had over the fires is there was time to see it coming. Water levels built up in reservoirs in the north of the state before it came crashing through towns like Bridgewater. Loddon Shire Mayor Gavin Holt says the impending disaster was there for all to see.
Our community said to us very clearly that a major concern was the adequacy of the warning system. We could not have on standby adequate response teams to completely cope.
Well, the first thing that needs to happen is that we needed to pull the trigger earlier. Once the event got to a certain size, the whole of the catchment should have been notified of what likely is the flow of water. We were a little bit in the dark, as with many other communities, as what was coming at us. We were just unable to give people any advice at all because the authorities that you would thought have had that knowledge, and which is the CMAs in this case, really had little to contribute and just could give us some fancy looking bit of technology toys, but that doesn't actually help people on the ground.
In one example of the townspeople taking charge, it was the local football and cricket teams credited for saving the electricity supply from the Kerrang substation.
We knew we had to save this, and assets of this nature, the government should never allow them to be exposed to the risk that they are. We are utterly disappointed with the behaviour and the way in which the company AusNet, who control this facility, has gone about repairing or securing this vital asset. Nothing's been done, and that is a great disappointment to us.
Neil Comrie has made 93 recommendations. The government has accepted all but 3, including the appointment of a single emergency controller.